Hello and welcome to episode 10 of the Truuman podcast, the podcast where I interview men because I want men to talk. Today I'm joined by Rich Hern. Thank you so much for being with us today. How are you?
Thank you for having me. Very well, thank you.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Awesome. First question, toughest question, my favorite question by a country mile. What makes Rich a man?
Okay, so I was expecting this question, I guess. I've tried not to think about it. What makes me a man? I suppose it's more like what makes me the man I am, right? Right, because I don't really see, I almost see like men or the man that I might describe as a man is probably not necessarily me. I'm just who I am. I'm what am I? Part my wife, part my kids, part my upbringing, um, and and a lot. Yeah, okay. I have thought about this actually, and I've just remembered what I was thinking this morning, and how to sort of have this answer that's like a good answer. But I suppose I am the sum of all the choices I've made in life, and some of the choices other people have made for me, and that's all we all are, isn't it? Bunch of choices.
Yeah, nice. Okay. Let's clip that. Nice philosophic answer. So you mentioned a number of things there that sort of influenced that as well, and you also said that that's what you are. So it'd be interesting to get an opinion on what you think it is a man today that is outside of you, essentially.
Yeah. Okay. What is a man? Okay. Well, there's obviously the obvious genetic bits that make someone a man.
Yeah.
Um, and is there a mindset that makes you a man? I don't know. I think that this is another thing I was thinking actually, that I'm probably going to answer a lot of these questions with questions, because I remember taking my daughter to see Zootropolis, and that's what the fox tells you is the intelligent way to talk about things. So yeah, if I haven't got an answer, you'll know because I've answered with a question. Um, but
Or a Disney quote.
yeah, a Disney quote. And I think really though the answer is I don't really know. Like what is a man? It's so nowadays it's kind of open to interpretation, I suppose, to some degree. It's you know, we're all different.
Yeah,
So
definitely. I mean, it's. I think you hit the nail on the head the first time around, right? It's what you make it, and I think that's probably what I'm trying to sort of emphasize. I think it's a really tough question. I think it's a question that's being asked a lot, or it's something that's being questioned. Like being a man is being questioned, and that's why I want to address it, and I want to understand what people's thoughts are on it. So, this podcast is designed around you and what it is and sort of how you've sort of got to where you are now. So it'd be a great to get a little bit of an understanding of. I always use this Little Rich. I won't use the other option of what it was like sort of growing up as Little Rich.
okay. So yeah, I've been thinking about this a lot recently. I think because I started a business in 2018, I've spent like various times in the last 5 years thinking about what my story is. Um, and as you know, the other day I managed to kind of get it down to like a 2 minute little pithy idea, but that means I fluffed over a lot of the Little Rich. But I remember I had some close friends in school, when I was really small. And that was I've always had a like tight, close unit of friends, and then some of those I've still got now, but sort of people come and go, I suppose. And so that happened to me in school. I think I moved to different schools and had friends, and then had other friends. Got into music really young. I remember playing, and this is part of the bit that I cut out because some of my rock and roll mates now laugh at the fact that the first instrument I played was clarinet. This
Nice.
was at primary school, and I remember going to primary school on the day that we were kind of given musical instruments, and I must have been late that day because I don't think I'd have chose. I was like, what's left, and I actually thought, and this isn't like however old I was, 8 or 9 year old, and I was already thinking about like, well, do you know what, that like I could progress onto sax, and that's a bit cooler. I was already quite aware of the perception of things, you know what I mean, and what that
Yeah,
would
yeah.
look like. Um, which I guess I then brought into my sort of music career because I did that, like played clarinet for a year, smashed grade 1, was pretty good on it. Then then was given guitars, was doing some kind of come by our round the campfire sessions in a teacher's classroom at a primary school. I remember learning to strum a bit of guitar. And then when I was 11, I managed to blag my parents into getting me a drum kit. After I remember hearing my sister blasting "Rape Me" by Nirvana, and I was like, "What the hell is this?" I was really offended by it. I was like, "It's about rape." I was such a young child, I couldn't sort of see anything beyond the surface level of it. And then I heard Rage Against the Machine, and again I was like, "Oh my god, he's just swearing." And then within about 2 weeks, I was like, "Oh my god, I want a drum kit, and I need to learn how to do that." And then, then I never looked back, and that was my start. And then I went into guitar again. So, what was the question? What was I like as a kid? I liked music. That was
Nice. Yeah, nice. And well, you can sort of explain what that's led into sort of later on. But I guess what sort of comes out of that is that passion for something, a hobby, an instrument, and that sort of thing. So how did you find that love, and how have you still essentially got that love for that, or was that a rediscovered love later in life?
Like I say, how I can't remember the first day that like a musical instrument was put in my hands, but I think music's always been something I've been interested in. And my dad was a big music fan. He loved music. He loved kind of everything from, well, the Beatles to Jethro Tull. So he was quite folky and quite, but just loved music, but never really pursued it as a hobby. He was more of a visual kind of artist, and so yeah, but I don't know where that came from. My mum always says as well that her father was a really good pianist. He never really learned how to play like the notes and stuff, but he could just bash tunes out. So it was very social use of music. He was. I've sort of married into a family of musicians, but my father-in-law is a brass band composer, so more on the kind of classical side. And I ended up joining a choir in like 10 years ago. I almost say it was like that was like the prenup agreement. I'm allowed to marry his daughter if I join his choir. But yeah, I don't know. Music just became this thing I don't know if it's become more of a thing in my life over the years. That's like medicine. It's like it can pick you up, and so whether that's always been there, and I've only kind of put the pieces together as I've grown up. I don't know, but I've always just found like this deep connection with music that's, I suppose, has helped me present who I am and understand who I am. So do you know what I mean? I remember being like a grebo, they would have described me as a grunge kid, and it was like, and that was perfect for me. That was like, that this says a lot, and it meant I could dress a certain way, and I could behave a certain way, and I felt comfortable, and that's so. So yeah. I don't know where it came from.
Cool. So I agree with you. I think music is one of those things that is, well, anyone can enjoy music, but like I say, especially in earlier years, it sort of helps shape those identities. I used to have long hair as well, which was an interesting style choice. I don't know whether that was more of a rebellion as well, because when I was a kid, I used to just get my head shaved, like pinned down, and have just literally just buzz cut all over. So combination of rebellion / listening to head flicking music. So yeah, that I get that, and I speak to a lot of people now, and I think even for people that it's not really ever been a passion for, music and is very very easy release, very easy to find the mood you're in and sort of engage in that, or change your mood as well. I've got friends that see it as a solution to a problem that they might have. It's better to go listen to some hardcore rock than potentially doing something a little bit out of the ordinary, shall we say. So yeah, for me, I've never been like musically talented. I know what a clarinet is, and I know what a piano is, but that is about as far as it goes. So yeah, even for people that are musical, I think it's really important. But yeah, I imagine if you've got an additional passion there, that it's somewhat of a greater release, so to speak.
Yeah, do you know what? Thinking about the passionate bit behind music like that, I think when I was thinking about this, I wasn't passionate for the clarinet. I just played it. But when I got to like an age where I thought that this was defining my life, like music became the thing. When I was 14, I played my first gig, although the bass player in that band challenged me online the other day and said, I think we were 13 actually. But the fact is, we played a gig and we were really young, and I remember that being a terrifying experience. I was absolutely bricking it. And I remember it vividly because of that. I was like, oh my God, that was horrible. But actually, when we'd done it, it was great. And we were like, we used to play like we were playing in front of 5,000 people if we were playing in front of 5, because that was just the decision we made. We went, we are going to rock this like we're headlining Glastonbury, because that's where we want to get to. So we're going to fake it till we make it and just have fun. And like, yeah, then I spent the next 15 years. I think the passion changed though, I suppose. It was like, I loved doing music, but then I realized that I loved making music more than performing it. So I was quite happy to kind of not have to go on stage. I'd rather just be write and do the creative process of writing music. And then eventually I found that like I just enjoyed being around music, and ended up doing sort of more marketing and helping other musicians pursue their passions, if you like. Became my passion, I suppose, and that's what it is now. It's like I always feel like I'll retire into music. Like I learned how to play guitar. I can play guitar well enough to go and do some busking, or just to play for fun,
Yeah.
So when I'm old and I haven't got a pension because I've pursued the life I have, then I'll just busk.
You'll just busk, yeah.
And
Cool.
love life, yeah.
Sounds good. So you obviously mentioned friends in there as well. So how has music been to one, keep friendships, to also foster them and make them?
Well, yeah, my best friends at high school, I guess, were my bass player and drummer. Yeah, like because we were together at like 13 to maybe 18, and that was just tight. We were like brothers. As much as like we loved what we were doing, we were working hard together, and eventually we kind of just really annoyed each other, I think. But then all the kind of music projects I've been in have been close friends. Not that I haven't had friends outside of them, but there came a point, I think, where I made a decision in life, and I think I thought that it had to be music and nothing else. And in later life, I kind of met people and went, "What, you like football and you do music?" Like, I didn't realize you could do that, So yeah, I had close friends. I mean, I messed up some close friend relationships, really, thinking about it. If you want to get really sort of personal, I messed them up through girls. There's two in particular I remember, actually. I've never talked about this, but there's a friend of mine who lives in Japan now. Brilliant artist who was always an amazing illustrator, and he really liked this girl. And this is when I was going to Glastonbury and was kind of behaving quite rock and roll, I think, and didn't give a shit about anyone apart from myself, really. And yeah, there came a point where I sort of misbehaved with the girl that he had his heart set on. Really, they weren't together, but it was it wasn't a good thing to do, really.
Yeah. Thankfully, my friends have horrendous taste in women. I'm joking. It's just not the same as mine. So that's always good. So it's interesting you say that you were solely music. So like, there must have been a point where it was like, right, we're not making it, or we're not going to be where we want to get to, and that's your sole purpose. So what was that like? What was that realization like?
Oh man, I think about this now, and the fact that like I describe myself as a failed rock star, and it's a badge I wear proudly, because like we had a go, and really the guy I'm working with now, Liam, who is my colleague and business partner, he got my band the best ever opportunities we've ever had. So we went through stages with bands. It was like we were kids and we were pretty good, and so and we somehow, I think my drummer's mum knew a couple of people, and so we had like a couple of guys from some big major record labels come from London to our rehearsal room in Alsager and tell us we needed to write pop songs. And I remember laughing him out of the room. We'd be like, "Get off, you dickhead." Yeah, he was probably right, in fairness. And then we had so we had a couple of people coming and sniffing around us at a very young age, but we weren't ready for anything really then. We just weren't. We were kids, and then when we got to the age where we perhaps thought we were ready for something, we had a producer in Manchester, and he knew we weren't ready, And he told us, and we were thinking, no, get lost, we could handle it. He was like, if you got signed and got famous now, you'd all just die. You just wouldn't be able to handle it. And he was probably right again. But eventually I realised that the only way that we were going to get anywhere was through doing it ourselves. And actually I've always had this rebellious streak, I guess, and sort of went, I don't like the way the music industry is. I don't like the fact that I've got to appeal to whoever it is. I just want to do it myself. Hello. This is Will. He's my son. He's just telling me he's going to strip a Warhammer model.
Oh, nice. Hey, Will. Welcome to the podcast.
So the industry, the music industry. And I was like, do you know what? I don't think anyone's going to take us seriously until we have proved ourselves. And I feel like that with all the artists I work with. You kind of got to get yourself to a certain point. So I took it on myself to kind of learn the industry and how it worked, and marketing and promotion and how to kind of do all that stuff. And we were doing okay. We got to the point where we were in our 20s and we'd kind of we'd started to kind of make a few things happen ourselves. We'd got a PR company down in London. We'd saved some money, and then we started working with Liam, who I work with now, and he got us the best opportunities the band had ever had. I don't know what the timeline is, but I lost my dad 16 years ago, and that was a very dark period of my life, and I think it coincided with me quitting the band and the band kind of ending. And we got, so I think that's sort of part of the timeline. I for some reason, like, it's a bit of a blackout, and I know why, because it was a bit of a blackout period in my life. I can't quite put the pieces together, but I know when my dad died, we were gigging in France in the Alps. This was like a covers gig, but we were over there just after. Do you know the band The Feeling? Sort of pop. Pop band.
Yeah.
Well, they were there the year before, and they had a different name, but they were over there as a really good covers band who then threw in some original stuff. And we were there the year after, and people were going, "We had The Feeling last year. You guys should do you do original stuff?" And those gigs were amazing, even though we were doing covers, which I remember growing up when I was 16 to maybe 20, thinking I'd rather eat my arm than play covers. I thought it was prostituting your art. But actually, getting paid to snowboard and gig for 3 months was quite a good gig. But we were over there. We just played an après ski, and we'd had crowd surfing people with ski boots on, just kicking ass. And then I got this phone call, and I remember I collapsed onto just on my knees, and Joe, who's the lead singer of the band, kind of took the call first. I think someone phoned him, handed it over to me, and I just collapsed and then just drank myself into a hole, and somehow managed to get a flight home, and then I just think I had a few years that were really hard, and perhaps that came at the same time as we weren't able to we found the end of the band was quite stressful in terms of the creative side. We weren't happy with where things were going. We felt like we were working on songs for too long. So we'd love this idea. We'd have a spark of an idea in the rehearsal room. In fact, one's called Little Sparks. I'll show you later because we did finish it, but we never actually released it. But so we had this kind of thing going on, and then we worked on them so hard that by the end of it, we didn't like them anymore. So we just got to the point where the process wasn't fun.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpick.
Yeah.
Firstly, après skiing is the only type of skiing that I can do. So that's
okay.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of après skiing, and it's really interesting because, like you say, it's almost like that loss of identity as a band, but it's actually arguably the best time as a band, which is a weird thing to sort of. It's growing up, like you say. It's sort of like realizing if I want to do this, I've got to do this, and try and sprinkle in some uniqueness as well. But obviously the dark side of that and what happened. Do you mind sort of explaining why it hit you so hard? Like, have you got any looking back?
My dad suffered with mental health since he was 19, and I found out after he died, he took his own life. And I found out after he died that he'd had electric shock therapy when he was 19, and I didn't know that, and he died when he was 59. and I knew that he'd had depression. Like I knew that he had this thing. There was this kind of, we knew, the family knew, it wasn't something that was hidden from us, but I didn't really know what it was. But I knew that he had it, and I knew it came in waves. And I remember when I was older, 20 something, he told me, I went to see him one summer knowing that he was on a low ebb. And we went for a walk around the village that we used to live in. And he kind of told me like how it felt and what it was like. And he asked me, do you understand? And I said, no, Dad, I don't. I don't understand, because I don't understand why you can't just switch it off or just say, no, I think something else. And I've always felt lucky in that I've never been there. My sister has suffered a lot more than I have with mental health and anxiety. I almost feel like I have the normal levels of anxiety and mental health that come with just life. And having kids.
Yeah.
But so I didn't understand what he was on about. I've always felt quite lucky for that, but that also breaks my heart, because I think, God, if I could have done something or said something. But I suppose that's why that losing someone like that, losing someone anyhow is hard, but losing someone like that when they sort of end it themselves, that throws you into questions. It throws you into a lot of things, like anger. Now I just feel immense sadness that he never met my kids, he never met my wife. But I suppose when I was that age and it was fresh, it just took a few years to not get over it, but I don't know, to stop drinking. I think I just went a bit off the rails, really.
Well, it's a shock factor, right? Like you say, if someone's ill or
to get past the shock, to just kind of get over the initial sort of punch to the stomach, took a few years, I think, really.
Yeah.
I think part of the reason why I can't put the timeline together is because I don't really want to go there, really.
Yeah, no, that's
very.
What
I mean? So
yeah. How do you think that's changed your perception of life?
Okay, yeah, it definitely has. So happiness for me is a pursuit that I think that I sort of hold in the highest, I guess, the highest kind of place for me in life. I'm always trying to make sure that everything I do like makes me happy and those around me. I do struggle with people like being unhappy, and I suppose that's that's come from that with my dad. I find it difficult because I just think if I don't know, I choose to sort of pursue happiness, not in a selfish way, but in more of a kind of, I don't know, self-aware way, and just think, I feel like shit. Why is that? Try and figure it out and move past it. So that's definitely something that I try and be kind all the time and try and sort of promote happiness and enable it in other people. What else? What was the question?
Just how it's affected your life, essentially.
So that, and then when I set up a business in 2018, doing kind of music marketing, and then a not-for-profit aimed at sort of bringing funded music projects into Stoke and Staffordshire, I had this idea of what these kind of pillars of this business would be, because they were kind of the same business, but limited company was for selling marketing, and the other one was for like doing funded projects. But I had these pillars, and one of them was like mental health, and I thought I want to do something in mental health, because obviously the music industry is a funny one in that there is a lot of it, and it's not just artists, it's everyone sort of behind the scenes and everything. There's just so much mental health stuff going on that I just thought, well, if I can sort of build that into something. But what I struggled with was people are willing to pay for marketing. I don't really want to monetize mental health. Do you know what I mean? I can't sort of see me going, I'll sell some mental health. Obviously, if I was a therapist or a mental health nurse, then yes, they've got to get paid for doing that thing. But I couldn't figure out how to sort of monetize that bit, so it took a bit of a back seat. But funnily enough, when me and Liam reconnected, so Liam was our radio plugger, got us the best opportunities in our band. That's almost the end of that story. But we took another single to him, and he said no. That was another part of that story. but he obviously didn't know what he was listening. No,
One more role.
we didn't. I don't even remember which track we took to him actually, but that in a way made me think, well, at least he's got the integrity to go, no, it's not there. But over the next 10 years, I knew who he was. I knew he was working with projects that I was kind of around and on the fringes of. And then we reconnected 10 years after we'd worked together on a mental health first aid course that was funded by the Musicians Union for him and Help Musicians UK for me, I think. And I remember having to describe who I was. I used to be a musician, now I do marketing. And that guy on Camera 7 got my band the best ever opportunities I've ever had. And we kind of reconnected. I sent him some music after we'd sort of chatted about what we were doing. He really loved it, and we started working together. I've forgotten where I was going with this question, but yeah, the changes. So it was then just talking about trying to sort of build mental health into what I was doing. I realised probably the only thing for me to do at the moment is signposting. So my cousin is a mental health nurse, for example, and he's doing a master's in dual diagnosis, which is like you've got a mental health problem and a drink problem, which I think is probably rife in the music industry, like drugs and mental health.
Yeah.
So I've kind of already talked to him and said, look, I'm trying to do something, I don't know what it is, but there's one part of it is around mental health, and probably it'll just be signposting people. And if you just put your hand up and, you know, are there to sort of talk to people who need help, that's the sort of, that's sort of people I need. So yeah, the mental health bit, I guess, came from my experiences with my dad. I don't suppose I would have the same sort of desire to do something in that space had it not been something I've lived with my whole life.
That's fair enough. Yeah. So I did a podcast with a guy called Mustafa quite early on, and he works in high-end fashion, which is extremely high pressured, extremely sales orientated, extremely clicky, everything's extreme. Like I've said extreme too many times now. But he was taking on a role within the company to start to advocate mental health, because within that industry it was shunned. It was like you just crack on, and it's in that industry. And I imagine this is probably similar in music, especially high up in music. It gets to a point where they would always find someone who would work more for less money, because the people that want to work for those brands are either trying to make a career in it or are already extremely wealthy anyway, and it's more of something to say at a dinner party. So I can see in that industry why it's there. What do you think is the key issue for mental health in music and musicians?
Good question. I also think, just before I answer that question, that I think it's rife in a lot of industries. Like my wife is a teacher, and I know for the last kind of 10 years that she's been occasionally taking responsibility for well-being in school, and it's a challenge. And I think mental health is a massive issue in teaching as well, and because of the pressures and the accountability, and I think it's only got worse and worse and worse over the years. In music, for me, I think, and this is kind of a little bit sort of man-facting here, but I think that there is investment going in to the music industry from a high level when people are at crisis point. So to try and stop another Avicii, or to try and stop another suicide, there's almost like that level when people need it and they're at breaking point. For me, what's missing, and I've started to see a lot more of it in recent years, is mentoring and coaching to stop people getting to that place in the first place. I don't know if you ever will, because you're always going to have like the freaks and weirdos of music who are
it's art, right? There's beauty. There's got to be.
Yeah, of course, there's beauty in the suffering, if you like. But it's, I sort of feel like, mentorship and coaching, and I suppose this is again the same probably across all industries. That's like where you can try and help people not get to that point in the first place.
Yeah. But we'd have no Adele albums, so there's got to be a battle.
Do you know what? That's you joke as well, but that's kind of, there is a part of that as well. It's like, well, someone's got to suffer to kind of come to to create this sort of beautiful bits from it. Like you say, the cracks where the light comes in. You know, it's like. So yeah, there is a risk of that. Like if everyone had the perfect mentor and coach and we were all on a certain level, you'd just have very monodynamic music for the rest of forever. But yeah, I mean, and hopefully there will always be artists who sort of have cathartic experiences expressing themselves with music.
Yeah.
Because that's what everyone else needs, isn't it? That the listeners need that kind of.
So one of my businesses a while ago was working with professional athletes and essentially allowing them a career after sport, because we obviously see all these highbrow and hyper successful athletes and sort of elite level that earn millions of pounds. But if you sort of peel past a layer, you sort of get into League One football and lower ranked tennis and golf and Olympic sports. They end up retiring in their mid-30s with not a lot to show for it. And it was essentially helping them sort of find another purpose, because the cliche is finish football and then be a coach. And ironically, there isn't enough teams for everyone to coach. So it was trying to sort of on that angle as well. So what are your thoughts on that for sort of, I guess, lower level artists? Not every artist can be like a Grammy winning artist and make millions.
Yeah, that sounds nice what you were doing there. And I think one thing that I've always felt about the mindset of sort of that's in the music industry, it's almost like when you decide that you kind of want to have a go at music, it's almost like you're not allowed to not aim for the top. You're not allowed to kind of not be aiming to play Glastonbury main stage. And I feel like maybe there's a sort of path into allowing people to just do it for fun. Because right now, the music industry is in a funny place where making music has been democratized. The cost of making music has come down and down and down. The cost of releasing music has come down and down and down. So there's just a plethora of mediocre music, like for want of a better term. And as much as like I used to rail against the gatekeepers, like I said, like I used to just think, no, I'm not going to let anyone decide whether or not I can have a career. I'm going to do it myself. There's reason for gatekeepers. You know, there's a reason I listen to, like, when I'm on a good week, 200 artists a week, and choose 5 that I'm reaching out to because I think they're good enough. And I think you need people who are willing to do that and prepared to do that. But also, that doesn't mean that the other 195 shouldn't be doing music. You know, I just think there needs to be a bit more honesty in the music industry, and maybe there needs to be an opportunity for people just to like do it for fun, not do it because you're aiming to make a career out of it. Having said that, I've always, you know, I aim to make a career out of it, and I aim to help other artists make a career out of it now. But I just feel like at the moment there's so much noise. It's hard enough for artists who are good to get heard in the first place. So yeah, I just think maybe validating people doing music for fun might help.
Nice. Yeah, I get that. I think it's a passion, right? And some people should just find enjoyment in passion. Like you get very good singers that don't have the X factor as well, right? Like there's a reason why there could be 2 people that are equally as good at singing, but there's always something else that gets that person in front of the other person. I'm sure there's better singers out there as well, or better musicians that are probably like, why am I not here? Because I'm significantly more talented. But there is, in stardom anyway, there's always got to be a little bit extra than just you're good at music. I God knows how many people are grade 8 in an instrument, but I'm never going to pursue it. So yeah, it should be seen as a hobby as well. Speaking of hobbies, what is it that you sort of now do outside of your career? As a little bit of fun.
I run every now and then, not enough. But I started running actually after I lost my dad. Me and my sister signed up for the Great North Run, and we did it for Mind, and it was an excuse for us to kind of to get into being more healthy, really. And then she went, we should do the London Marathon. And I was like, yeah, we'll do that for Mental Health Foundation. So I signed up, and she didn't. I did it on my own. But since then, she married a guy who was into mountain marathons and this kind of thing. So she's done a lot of that. I've done more of the sort of road running, trail running stuff. And I love running. I love trail running. I love that I can step out of my house, put my trainers on, turn left, and I'm kind of up the downs banks and kind of in the countryside. Some of the roads down there remind me of Cornwall. So my dad's from Plymouth, and we used to go across the Tamar into Cornwall, and I just love it. So I love running. I don't mind running in the peeing rain. I'd rather run on trails than in the countryside. In terms of hobbies, I still pick the guitar up every now and then. I've got a clunky old. I don't even own a guitar anymore. I got rid of them all, but my wife's got a clunky old acoustic, which is quite nice, and so I play that every now and then. Other than that, it's just hanging out with the kids. I've got 2 kids now, 11 and 9, and so I try and spend as much time as I can with them. So, yeah, my son's into Minecraft, so I've had to learn. I don't really know how to play it. He just beats me every now and then.
So yeah, I mean that's kids, right? They become a job in themselves. So I've been told. I'm not at that stage yet.
I love them. So yeah. So I guess other than that, I don't really have hobbies. We sort of watch films, but yeah, the healthiest thing I do is running. So try and hang out with family.
Yeah, cool. So let's talk about family. You've obviously. It sounds like you had a really good relationship with your father that then just stopped, and now you are a father. How do you take the positives from what you got from your father, and also essentially the negatives as well? So what are the positives and the negatives that you now utilize yourself as a father? What have you taken from?
Good question. I've never really thought about that because he's not been there as I've had kids. I've never really thought about but the good things about him, I suppose a lot of my values come from him, I guess. He was a really kind and loving guy. The bad, what was bad about him? I used to get a bit narky. I think I've probably got that as well. So my daughter always asks me are you grumpy today? No, I'm not grumpy. But yeah, I suppose I almost feel like thinking about it. He was often there. He was always there as well, and I'm here. I'm sort of where I've ended up in life at the moment. At least I work from home quite often, and I'm the one taking the kids to school and picking them up. I know my wife would probably rather that wasn't the way it was, but that is the way it is, and I love that. It's fine. It's great. What else I've taken from my dad? He was quite creative, but I think I've gone further than him in terms of doing creativity more as part of my career.
It's interesting that you like the sort of stuff you're saying in regards to your family and stuff. I listened to a podcast with Lewis Howes, and he was talking about his life and how it's sort of broken up into what he calls chapters. And I sort of see it now. So I've got friends who've got kids as well, so younger than yours, so sort of in there. They're just about to go to school, so 3, 4, and 5. And you can see that for some of them, this is their sole chapter now, is I'm going to be a dad, the best dad that I physically can be, probably for the next 8 years till they sort of go away, Dad. You're in the way.
I'm not looking forward to the day that my son doesn't want to hold my hand when we walk to school. To be honest, I thought it would have stopped already, but it hasn't, and I'm clinging on. And he's going up to middle school next year with his sister, and it's a big change. And it won't be long before I don't have to walk him to school anymore. So, yeah, I'm loving this period of time, and yeah.
Well, maybe it'll be more like that. Maybe you won't. It's not that he's not holding your hand to school. It's that he's just walking himself. And if you were there, you'd be holding your hand, mate.
Maybe. To be honest, I remember what it felt like holding my dad's hand. He had really quite dry, callousy hands, And I remember it well because I remember after he died, I remember thinking, I'd sort of wake up and feel that feeling and think I'm never going to feel that again. And when my daughter tries to stop holding my hand at the moment because she goes, "You've got really dry hands," I said, "One day you will miss that. You will just hold my bloody hand." But yeah,
Nice. It's so not a safety thing, just pure missing the
no,
fact that you're
yeah,
gonna.
just thinking it reminds me of my dad, and one day you'll you'll miss my dry hands.
So your relationship with your partner right now is in sort of, well, like you say, it's in a position that you're sort of looking after the kids a little bit more, and you're
Mm.
sort of focusing on this new side of the business. What are the discussions around that? Have there been any discussions? What's the
Mm.
conversations like?
I suppose the only discussions are it wouldn't be this way if we had a choice. I think only because she's the main wage earner. She's a deputy head teacher, so she's kind of out the door at 7:30 and back at home probably like 6:30 most days. And I've got the flexibility to be able to, because I do a bit for myself, but also because I've got a boss who's a mate of mine who's a really the two. I do 2 days a week for a friend of mine, and he's flexible enough to let us who've got kids do that bit. I suppose it's just the way it is. I think the only discussions we've had really are the reason that I'm doing what I'm doing in life and trying to set my own business up and kind of try and build an income is so that my wife doesn't have to. That's not my sole focus, because if it was, I'd just do anything. But it's kind of it's like that's what I'm aiming for. I'm aiming for like to earn enough money so that she can do something else. And so that's a big driving force. She knows that. I sometimes have to remind her when she sort of wonders. And at the moment, it feels like that's a lovely idea or a lovely dream, but we're a million miles away. While I'm still sort of, I guess, making ends meet. So, yeah. But in terms of like the plans for us, we're fine. We're happy, and we're happy where we are. But I've got designs for our roles to switch, and in fact, it might work quite nicely if the kids have got old enough that they don't need dad there in the mornings and afternoons. Because I know that when I get to the point where I've got the chance to build the kind of income that I need, I'm probably going to have to be away more often, because that's where the music industry is. It's not here in sunny little Stone. So there might come a time where I have to be in Manchester, Birmingham, and London more regularly, and possibly further afield. I work with an artist an Italian artist who lives in Barcelona. I'd love to go and hang out with him for a bit. But
It's a tough job, mate.
yeah, it's a tough job swanning around the world. But yeah, so I think it is quite useful talking about this, and I'm kind of half using this as a bit of a, not a therapy session, although I think we've done the therapy session bit, but now I'm using it as a life planning session. I'm thinking, yeah, the timing could work quite well, actually. Like the kids getting old enough when they're at middle school, and then a lot can slow down, and I can pick up the slack. Hopefully,
Yeah, nice.
That's the plan.
Cool. So let's sort of delve into career now a little bit and sort of touch on that. Is when was that change? When was it like musician to helping musicians, or was it almost like a force?
When did it happen? So I think because I was doing all the sort of marketing and management stuff for the projects that I was in, I think there came a point like maybe 2011. I remember helping an artist release an album in 2011, and I think so possibly before that I decided that I was going to start to approach artists and offer kind of marketing services, offer to help them do the sort of things I'd been doing for myself. I think at that point I'd already been asked by other mates who were in bands. They'd kind of asked me to help them. I wasn't charging anyone anything at that point, but I was just dabbling stuff to do with digital marketing and an artist, and then spent like 10 years doing that evenings and weekends. And then like 2018 sort of decided, right, if I'm going to do this, it was good timing for me, really, because I went 2018. I'd done a master's in digital marketing. I'd done a master's in digital marketing after doing 10 years of digital marketing, just to prove to myself that I knew what I was on about. And I did that evenings and weekends whilst working full time. So I kind of went, okay, I've done that, and I used that the final sort of project to look at a blueprint sort of marketing strategies for independent musicians. So I was always had this idea that I was trying to find something to do as a career in that space. And so yeah, I guess some of it was kind of natural, and some of it was a path that I set my sights on. Then set that business up in 2018 and sort of pivoted a lot. I started doing too much for too little, trying to do everything for an artist for not enough money. And then eventually, within a couple of years, I think had some clients that were worth like 14 times what I thought I could charge, and was like, okay, that's helpful, because then you can actually do the job better without just stressing about, trying to do I don't know what you could get done. But that decision to kind of, I guess, move away from creative and into marketing just happened naturally. I remember having a day where I worked with an artist called Ewan Grono, who's Johnny Marr's bass player, and he was releasing some stuff independently, and I was like, we spent a day kicking around this bloody EP artwork, and it was just like, move that 2 pixels up, that one down, and this font, here's 14 different fonts, they're all pretty much identical, but let's try them all out. And it took ages because we were doing it remotely. It was during lockdown, and eventually he kind of replied on some WhatsApp message and said, yes, we've nailed it. And I was like, I got this massive wave of energy, like, yes, we've done it, and now I can upload it and we can do the distribution. And I realized that process of helping him make progress really filled me up. I was like, I really enjoyed that. And so I suppose that was partly where I went, this is where I need to be. I love this. But it was a gradual process. I'd been doing it for like a couple of years paid before I had that little epiphany.
Cool. Well, it comes in weird places, I guess. I'll tell you a fun story about what you call like 98 to 100% off camera, because it's quite a, you'll like it moving forward. I think it'll help you with clients, because I've been there, mate. I've dealt with clients as well, but it's an interesting story. So just to sort of touch on something you touched on before about this being a little bit of a life planning session, sort of moving forward into life and sort of thinking about career, other musicians, family, hobbies, picking up the old guitar. How important are you finding life planning, or is this something that you're recently discovering and want to do more?
Life planning. I don't think I don't know. Have I done? I sort of feel like maybe I haven't really done that much life planning. I've just kind of done what's in front of me. But that's not 100% true, I don't think, because I remember seeing a house in the Peak District, not far away, like an hour away, but the house had this kind of outbuilding that was like a studio space. And my wife is a textiles teacher primarily, and would love to do sort of workshops. And I sort of feel like at some point I'd quite like to have a recording studio, even if it's just a space for me to sort of do some music in, or perhaps help some artists do some stuff in. And that turned into this kind of almost a vision board idea. I can see the house in my head now. And so I think that's as far as I kind of take those things. I kind of go, that house is good. I know how much it would cost, and those kind of things. I'm looking at my board behind my screen, and it's all just notes and bits and pieces. I don't do too much kind of planning. So I almost feel like I could probably benefit from doing more of it, because when I have set my sights on something, I've just done it, whether that's a thing that takes 2 years or 10 minutes.
Nice. I'm going to ask you a question now that it's going to be another hard one, I think, but I kind of like it. You seem quite content right now with what's going on in life. There's obviously aspirations and things that are sort of outside of that, but right now, present, you seem quite content. Is that fair? And if so, how do you deal with that? How do you allow yourself to be in
Do you
that
know
state?
what? Is it fair? Am I content? I'm definitely I'm happy with with where I'm at in life, but I feel that is a massive risk, like, because basically one of the points in my life where I was in that band that were playing covers, where I'd rather eat my arm than play covers. This was my final year of uni, and I remember looking around. I remember the day really clearly. I was looking, over there was McDonald's, and over there was Burger King. I was thinking, I've got no money. I've run out of money. I thought I need to get a job. It was final year, and I got a phone call from a mate who's in the band. Twem, he used to be my drummer, and he's pretty much my best mate from college till now. He phoned me and said, "Look, Dave is leaving the band. Dave's the guitarist. Dave's also owns the booking agency. Dave is the friend who I work with 2 days a week. Dave's leaving the band. Do you want to come and do some guitar for a bit?" I was like, Burger King, McDonald's, or get paid to play guitar, even though I thought it was prostituting your art and I didn't want to. I thought, right, okay, I'd rather get paid to play my guitar. Yeah, okay. And I did that for 4 years. But I knew that those guys in that band, and not all of them, because a couple of them have changed, but that was a comfortable trap. You could have very happily just gone, yeah. We were kind of earning a salary doing two gigs a week. Sometimes it was busy in summer and it was busy in December, but for the rest of the times we'd have months where we weren't doing very much. And while I was in the band, I kind of tried to encourage us to get, like, we were paying ourselves very hand to mouth, and I turned it into a salary. So we got paid. It wasn't a lot, but we'd be paid like 1,500 quid a month, whether we gigged or didn't. And that I just thought it was a comfortable trap. So I spent the 5 days in between gigging working on pursuing my career in music. I ended up getting a job writing electronic music for a sound design company, which is what I was into at the time. And I got that. Again, that was like me going, right, I want this. That's what I'm going to do. I did some things. At the time, I downloaded a bunch of videos from this sound design company and redid the sound and sent them to this guy, and he was just really impressed that I'd done that, and I got a job working for him. So but now, where am I always worry about this comfortable trap. So I don't want to be there, because I have got this ambition that I want to get to the point where I'm earning the household income and my wife can kind of step down and do whatever she wants. That's my goal. I think if I get there, that'll be when I can sort of, I don't know, breathe out, I suppose, and go, right, now I'm content. Now I've got where I want to get to in life. Right now I'm not there. I know I'm definitely not there. I've got a lot of work to do to get there, and I worry, I suppose, that I'm too content. Yeah.
Yeah. I think the more I look at it and the more I'm sort of dealing with it right now, I feel like it's a state, and it sort of links into those chapters. So, like, I think it's really important to be content with your current situation, but you shouldn't feel forced to stay there. I think it's literally what you said. Like, I completely agree with you. It's okay to enjoy where you're at and not be ashamed or feel pressure that you need to get to somewhere else. It's okay to be happy in the moment, but it's also not wrong to want more. And I think that's how I'm looking at it right now. Like, and if you can find that, you're onto a winner, I think.
Yeah, you're right. And it's a bit of a cliche, but enjoy the journey and the process, because that's life, isn't it? And I think I remember I started to do sort of mindfulness stuff a few years ago, and I've dipped in and out of it. And I remember one of the things was, like, it's about trying to not have a sort of striving mind, not to always be striving. And I think that's fine, but I think there's a balance, because you could just sit around on your arse all day and do nothing. But yeah, like you say, for me, I think you've nailed it. It's about, I am happy where I am, and happiness, as I've said, is really important to me. And it's not just my happiness; it's the happiness of me and everyone around me. But that is, I'm always aware that I have this other aspiration, the other thing that I want to get to. So I'm not going to forget that, I suppose.
Perfect. Honestly, I think that is an absolute beautiful way to end it. So, Rich, thank you so much for your time. If there's any closing remarks from yourself, it'd be great to hear from them. But thank you
No,
very much for being here today.
thank you for having me. I feel like you've taken me through, and maybe you have done this through the kind of 8 pillars of what the Truuman sort of framework is.
Maybe.
It's been cathartic, for one, at least. So thank you. It's been therapeutic and cathartic. I've really enjoyed it. Enjoyed talking to you.